Meetings. Love them or hate them, there's something that we need to do. And for us that are working in technology or working in areas of businesses where we have to do creative problem solving, one of the meetings that comes up is a type of status meeting. And over the years, as I've gone through my career, these status meetings I found are actually they're quite dry. They're quite dry. I find them not as exciting and as lively as we could make them. So think about you get in on the Monday morning, you're sitting around the table, or your colleagues roll in, drop their books, coffees, laptops are open on the boardroom table, and here we go. We start the meeting, and we have somebody read their status report. Okay, you get through a status report, you have some questions, we start asking some questions, we have some back and forth on based on that status report. And 10 minutes later, okay, we complete that series of exercises, we step on to the next person, go to the next person. Well, they go on, and they go on, and they go on, and they go on. And it feels like we're really not meeting any conclusion there, so we have to facilitate through that one. Then the third person goes, the same thing. We stop, we ask for clarifications on their status. And by the time we get maybe to the fifth or the sixth person, and perhaps you got 8 people sitting around the table, time's up. Time's up. Everybody has to go. They pack up their books and away they go, and laptops are closed. We're off to the next meeting. Yet you have 3 other people that are sitting there. It's like, well, I didn't give my status report. So how is that going to factor in? We have to take a step back and think about this style of meeting. Yes, there's some facilitation we can do to make the flow of the reports better, but then you get down to reading off the slides. So let's reboot the mechanism on how we're doing these weekly status meetings. So what I have here is a Miro board, or you can use any sort of collaborative whiteboard to create this structure. And in this structure, what I've done is to create kind of a facsimile of sitting around a boardroom table. Okay. This idea is based off of a book by a well-known author, Patrick Lencioni, and he calls the book Death by Meeting. And there was an organization I was with. What was happening is we were having that status meeting that I was walking you through. And it wasn't working. It felt very draining to come in on a Monday morning, go through that sort of meeting, and really not hit the objectives of the meeting. It didn't feel like it was providing any value. Now, the leader of the meeting did need the information to kind of queue up or tee up what they wanted to do for the week. But some people didn't get a chance to report their thing, so they would have to go to the leader and have that conversation through a one-on-one. It didn't work. And after some complaints, I went to the bookstore and I saw the Death by Meeting book. I read it over a weekend, and I pulled out a couple of nuances and kind of rejigged them into this meeting format that you see here, and then tried it over a couple of years, and actually this has been a hit at a couple of the companies that I've been with. So let's go over the parts. Okay. So this is a metaphor of a boardroom table. Now this video is optimized for people who are working in a virtual environment. However, you can set this up to work in a physical environment. Just imagine people that are sitting around the boardroom table and you're using a whiteboard or some other mechanism, maybe a wall, to put sticky notes up on the wall. So what I'm going to do is walk through the parts of the table And then I'm going to go into the facilitation steps. So first, let's walk through the bits of the table. We have chairs. So think of these elements here as chairs. There is an area for people to put their name, and you're going to put 2 topics. And that's a key to making creating expediency in the meeting and creating focus, and I'll get more into that later. Okay, so everybody has the ability who are participating to pull up a chair, essentially. If you don't need a chair, easy enough to delete it from the board. If you need additional chairs, easy enough to do a copy paste using these tools. So if you want to use Miro like I'm using here, you can use Miro, or you can actually have somebody sketch it on a whiteboard. As long as everybody has access to it, that's key here. Everybody needs to have access so they can all collaborate at the same time. In the middle of the table, a topic space is created, and this will be for the folk to put their topics up onto the board. We have an area for interested parties. So as people are interested in a topic, then we give them a space for them to put their names. Okay. Created a Kudos section. So it's great to call out people who are doing things well or teams that are doing things well. So that gives us the chance to provide some of that positive energy. Strategic decisions being required. If there's call outs for strategic decisions, we can place them here. Public service announcements, as if you need some mass communication of something that's happening. Maybe there's outages happening, or there's maybe a VIP coming. We can put that on public service announcements. The meeting of date, when the board is complete, we can copy the topics in the interested party off of the board over to this area for meeting of, when that meeting occurred. So you can create over time a record of the meetings and the topics that were raised. That's great for doing retrospectives when you want to go back and revisit things that might have happened. So we can see, okay, what's the progress on those elements. The topic area down here, so as people put topics up here, we have a scratch space for us to do some capture of the thoughts that are coming up during the conversation. So find a scribe, or what I like to do is encourage everybody to start doing their own capture as the meeting progresses and we're talking about the particular topic. Over here here are the status updates templates, so people can fill out a template. This gives them the ability to put their very specific details up on the board, because what you're going to see in the facilitation is we don't go deep into the details of the status. People can read them. Rely on the ability for people to scroll through and read them. Kind of like a science fair or a marketplace, they can step through them. Okay. I added some resources here. So if you need the traffic light, if you're doing traffic light reporting, if you're doing, something's an emergency, or if you want to show out, hey, here's somebody who's been doing something really well, you can add more of these resources as needed as you evolve the way that you use this tool for your particular group. Okay, so, and then there's the improvement feedback. So if you want to retrospect and ask people what we can do better, there's a feedback area. So that gives us all the components of the board for setup. Now let's look at, how would we actually use this in practice? So the way it works is prior to the actual meeting is set up the board template. I have added facilitation instructions to this. So for the pre-meeting, we just want to make sure that everybody puts their name on the seat where they're going to sit, and they bring forward their top 1 or 2 or no more than 2 I usually reserve, this is just a way I like to run it. I reserve maybe 3 or 4 for the leader of the group because they may have additional things that they want to bring forward. But for the most part, get people to focus on their priority items. If they give you a laundry list, people will check out. Like, we're talking about 1 week cadence here. So do get folk to enter in what do they need to get through this week. And focus is a key. Focus helps us to keep top of mind priority. Okay. So the key thing here, and let's step through it. So just say I'll have Sally. Okay. Maybe have Joe. Okay. And then what I'll do is let me speed it up and then I'll fill these in and then we'll jump back into it. So here's an example of a little startup company and how this procedure works for running this type of meeting. So we start the timer. Everybody has 60 seconds to provide their updates. So in Miro, there is a clock that we can use. So you can either use the clock that's built in with the tool, or somebody can run a stopwatch. It's great when they can see it, and that's why I like this particular tool, because as we're running the clock, the folk see how much time they have to make their updates. So let's assume that the clock is running for each of the updates, okay? So you step through each person's, give them a 1-minute timer, and they will talk about their top 2 priorities for this week. So Sally, for example, we'll talk about the invoice process. Perhaps there's a breakdown with the invoice process. And then we move to Joe. Joe talks about development management. They had an outage. They're doing test-driven development training. So Joe will talk to those. And then Kathy will talk about in the sales that they have a new customer they're bringing on. And perhaps there's some need to help bring on the customer. So if there's a call out, say, hey, Kathy's saying, okay, new banner customer. Catherine says, I need some help bringing on the new banner customer, but we don't go into the details during the 60 seconds. Just calls out, I need help with new banner customer. Let's throw it up onto the topic board. So great. So we continue on. And you notice we can remove the chairs. So if we don't need additional spaces, we can take them out. Okay. Simon and legal, we can pass. Simon doesn't have anything. Simon says, nope, nothing here. There's nothing new. I'm just here to help out and support. Okay. Cash from HR is working on something called Kudos coins. Perhaps that's like an employee engagement initiative to make things more fun and exciting. And there might be some Kudos coin. Perhaps there's something going on with the Kudos coin game that Cash wants to say, hey, we're doing this Kudos coin game, but we got some challenges with that. I want to put that up as a topic. While the people are giving their updates, since this is a collaboration board, someone could say, let's say, for example, Joe wants to jump in on that topic because, their sneaky little developers have figured out how to game the Kudos coin game, and they actually start winning the game all the time because they created a little cabal of collecting the coins, and that steps outside of the HR process. Andrea has heard about that, says, all right, let's jump in and have a conversation about that. So Andrea would add her name to that. Okay. And the updates would continue around, again, 60 seconds. Harold would talk about there's a roadmap pivot to the technical debt, to which, oh, yeah, Joe knows development management. Yeah, there's that technical debt problem. So they can add their name to the technical debt and then, or add the technical debt topic, add their name. So great, there's Joe again. And Harold wants to get on the action on that. Okay, great. Simon decides, yeah, you know what? I want to get in on that as well because Simon from legal, because there's been some customers and maybe some integrity problems due to the technical debt that might create a legal risk. So Simon wants to weigh in on the legal risk. And then Victor realizes, yeah, that's been a pain for quite a long time in this company. Perhaps I'm going to jump in on that as well. Okay. So new banner customer. Okay, Kathy's asking for some help in that. Kathy signs up for this one. Okay, and perhaps in customer success, Andrea wants to get on that as well. So we go Andrea. Okay. So there we go. So everybody goes through, they got their 60 seconds to provide their top 2 status items that they want to get through this week, have a conversation about it. Here they can put in their status updates. I didn't do it for the sake of this exercise. Okay, and once we finish status updates and while people are putting their topics up on the table, from a facilitation standpoint, I'd like to give the folk a chance to go and throw some kudos up there. So there's a Service Excellent Awards, and for instance, Andrea wanted to call out that Priya saved one of the top clients, and this ties into perhaps the technical debt problem that this group has been having. Saving the top client, big thing, huge kudos with that. Wanted to call that out, and perhaps there's a learning there. Maybe we can bring Priya into a conversation. Now Priya's not at this table, but that's a part of getting into now the topic conversation. So how do we score the topics? So everybody's had a chance to weigh in. They put their names beside it. What we do with the blue sticky here is just somebody goes through and they just tally up, right? How many people are interested in talking about these things? Now, this is one way of working. There can be other ways of working. Perhaps a group leader looks at the topics and says, oh, we need to go with the technical debt one, or maybe it's the new banner customer, since there's so much value of that customer being brought in that we have to pivot to that conversation or start that conversation first. But if we want to use a democratic process, then I found this voting system works well. It's a vote with your feet. Pulling from open space technology, using the ability to vote with your feet is an important democratic process, and it gives people a feeling of empowerment on that. It tends to go well. The idea to think about here is if you're in a physical space, you can actually split the group. So if there's an actual split or partition in the interested parties, they can go to so let me rewind a little bit here. Think about if this is a 60-minute meeting in total, we want to optimize that time. So by having, just say, Kathy and Andrea break out to talk about their thing, and then Joe, Harold, Simon, and Victor can break out and talk about theirs, because Kathy and Andrea say, yeah, I don't need to worry about the technical debt thing right now. Just let us know what you're going to do. We'll support you from a customer success standpoint. Okay, so we can have people decide to split in that essence, and then they come back with the results of their conversations. Might be difficult sometimes in the virtual environment to have that split if your breakout rooms on your video conferencing tool don't allow you to easily create the breakout rooms, or there's a bit of kind of a muscle memory on how to jump into the breakout rooms and jump out. I find a lot of people just don't like it, or they don't gravitate well to going into the breakout rooms and being pulled back, not as much as in a physical environment. So this is an example where I've optimized this for people who don't want to use the breakout room and will still participate. Again, at this point, in this point in the meeting, if somebody wants to leave, because I'm not interested in any topics, they can sign out of the meeting. We say that's no problem. If you don't feel you can provide value now, you gave your updates, you saw the topics that are coming up, like, yeah, there's nothing here that I can really add value to, they're welcome to be excused from the meeting, and that helps because they know next time they come in, they can get help, and they know, some people may need to jump out. other people can pitch in and help out as they find value to be able to help. Okay. So what we do next is, okay, technical debt wins. So we take a copy of that. That's the top one. We come down here and I can do a paste in technical debt. And now we got some capture cards here. We start the conversation on technical debt. What I like to do is say, okay, let's throw 10 minutes on the timer and let's start talking about technical debt. Okay, so as people are talking, we can have a capture here and always look to lead it to action items. Okay, so I tend to color the action items in a specific color. So when I'm facilitating, when I start popping the blue ones up, people know that I'm in a way pushing for action to try and move and steer the conversation towards, we want to look at our outcomes. What are we trying to get done? So again, this is the essence of this style of meeting. We're trying to get away from reading this slide, reading this slide, reading this slide to, okay, what's the conversation? What are the decisions that we need to make here? What's the debate? How do we dissent? How do we push on each other, or how do we support on each other in order to move this forward? Okay. So that's the overall core flow of the meeting. So for each topic and for the amount of time, I find when running this meeting is I get about 3 topics. Given the size of the team, this is a smaller team. I have teams up to about 12 people. I know going a little high on the 2 pizza team thing, if you're into that. And what I find is it takes about first 15 minutes to get people settled and run through the topics. Then for the remaining time, I might get about 15, 15, 15. So that's 45 minutes of topic time. You can usually get through 3 topics, I find, in a 1-hour status update meeting. So your mileage may vary. You may have to add additional time depending on the level of conversation that you want to get into. As strategic decisions are being called out, then we can put those in. So for example, in drop products from, just say, how would we say this? Drop features from product roadmap to facilitate technical debt corrections, for example. So again, this is a development group and they're running into some problems with technical debt. It might be that this team can't make the decision on that strategy. Victor may have to take that with Joe, go to a higher level management meeting and say, hey, you know what? We heard you on what you need for some new product features, but we're getting killed by this technical debt. We have to take some time and focus on that. So they can take that out in a way and get that decision. So something for them to look at. Public service announcements as they come in, like just say Cash has done some work with the Kudos coins and needs to send out some information about that. That can be a public service announcement. Or some policy that's coming up, just say Simon doesn't have any top topics, but Simon might say, hey, there's some sort of, maybe there's building security. Perhaps Simon, being a smaller company, also has a risk profile. Says, here's some updates about building security. With these collaboration tools, we can also drop in web links as well. So if you want to copy and paste in a web link, you can do that. That allows people just to click on the thing and go to the documentation that Simon wants to present. And then towards closing, let's take a look. We've gone through, there's meeting improvement feedback. People can add that anytime. If they liked how the meeting worked or the relationships within the meeting and what was talked about, they can provide that feedback down here. So if there's maybe somebody who is pushing or asking great questions, they can put that in, depending on how you want to run your ways of working or your coaching agreements with this particular team. Okay. When we're done, we can take a capture of this work here, copy it, and then put it into the meeting, and then put the appropriate date on it when we had that meeting. So later, after we've run this for maybe 20 weeks or something to that effect, we can take a look at, well, what topics were coming up, and do we see a pattern in topics? So that provides some help for the teams to retrospect on this. The weekly status meeting, what I'll do is I'll put some links to the Patreon that I have set up. If you want a copy of this board, I will upload that for the higher level Patreon subscribers that get this content. And I'll also provide a PDF of it as well. So if you want to PDF and you got that template and you want to set it up on your collaboration space, then you can use that PDF as a guide for you to create your own. Or if you're actually using Miro, then I'll provide the board backup for this, so you can just restore the board and you'll be ready to go after a few tweaks. So thank you. Hopefully this will make your meetings more fun, more enjoyable, more conversation time, more getting into debating, pushing on, trying to create some creative dissent, giving some people some pats on the back, just getting into the conversation. We're not reading off slides. We're getting into conversations. We're pushing the edges, pushing the bounds, and getting actual results and decisions out of these status meetings.